Hi everyone, so today we are beginning a brand new unit, and that's going to be focusing on analysis. This week specifically, we will focus on analytic reading. I want to begin by highlighting what analytic reading is. During our analysis unit, we will think about how to read to understand what rhetoricians call the rhetorical moment. We will talk about rhetorical choices that authors make as they communicate, and we will learn to recognize rhetorical fallacies. Some of these might be things you learned in high school. If so, this unit will give you a chance to build on your skills and hopefully apply them to different kinds of writing. If this information is brand new to you, that's okay. We're starting with the basics, and by the end of this unit, you should feel equipped to do strong analytic readings. So one of the first things I think is important when reading analytically is reading with an awareness of what we call the rhetorical moment. And that's what I want to focus on in today's video. Another way to think about the rhetorical moment is to think about the when, where, why, and who that determines how and why something gets written. In rhetoric, we often think of any moment of communication as a triangle with three corners. There's the author sending the message, the audience receiving the message, and the actual material contained in the message. Each of these points affects the others. For example, think about how the same person with the same message might deliver that message differently depending on the audience. If I'm a doctor trying to explain a diagnosis, I'm going to alter how I speak depending on whether I'm explaining that diagnosis to a colleague with medical training, to the patient, or to the patient's 5-year-old kid. If I'm a science teacher trying to explain photosynthesis, I'll explain it differently to a class of second graders than I am to a class of college students. Second graders just need to know that plants use the sun to create food, but when I'm working with college students, I'm going to expect them to learn exactly how plants convert sunlight into energy. Similarly, the same information being given to the same audience is going to be affected depending on who is delivering that information. Have you ever taken a similar class from two different professors or instructors? The same basic material might be different depending on the person delivering it. And in the same way, the person you communicate with, or the way you communicate with a person, can be altered based on the material you communicate. All three parts of this triangle are affected by the others. So to summarize where we are so far, the rhetorical triangle, every time we read, we're reading more than just words on a page. We're reading for an awareness of how the words on the page are determined by the perspective of the person who is sharing them, the audience to whom they are intended, and the message being communicated. But understanding this basic rhetorical triangle is just the beginning. It's also important to be able to continue to read beyond the page by understanding why and when something was written. So to our diagram, I am going to add these two more things that influence how we should read a text: purpose and context. Every time we communicate with someone else, we do so for a purpose. It might be because we need or want something. The United States wants to be recognized as its own country. It writes the Declaration of Independence. A senator up for re-election wants people to vote for her and not her opponent. She records a negative television ad about her opponent. You want your friends to join you for dinner? You write a text message. Every time you read something, I want you to think about why it was written. How does the writer want you to think, act, or feel differently after reading what is written? I also want you to think about context. How does when a text is written influence the writer's choice? I think the internet provides lots of great examples of material that is created while being very mindful of specific contexts. Memes respond to current events and trends, and even other currently popular memes. Parody articles, like those written in The Onion, respond directly to things that have happened within days or even hours. For much of this material, someone who doesn't know the context is not going to be able to get the joke. Much of the material we read in academic contexts is at least a little similar. Without understanding what was going on in the world around a text when it was written, we won't fully understand the text. So what should rhetorical reading look like? First, you should identify the author. And this means not only finding out who the author is, but also thinking about what the author reveals about themselves through how they write and how that influences how the text is written. Then you should identify the intended audience. This means not thinking about who might be reading a text today, but rather whom the author has in mind while crafting the message. And once again, thinking about how that shapes the text. By identifying the main message, you are identifying the main ideas in the passage. You should also read to identify context, not just through what you know about text, but also through the context clues it provides. And finally, you should be able to identify the purpose for which the message was originally written. While our annotation unit is technically over, you should keep using annotation as a tool as you read. When reading for the rhetorical moment, I often make notes of where I find information about author, audience, main idea, purpose, or context. These notes can help you in your homework responses later on. I hope you have a good week, and as always, let me know if you have questions.